And welcome along to the Matchbook podcast. What a weekend we have in store to look ahead to. Not only a whole host of Group 1 supporting what is the centrepiece on Sunday, the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe from Paris-Longchamp, but also we'll have a quick look through some of the domestic action as well, because you've got racing from Ascot, Newmarket, and some brilliant action across the whole weekend. But what we want is winners. So with that in mind, we've got another brilliant panel assembled. No Tom this morning. Hopefully you're not too disappointed, guys. Miho Deasy, Donn McLean and Sam Turner with us. So brilliant weekend in prospect, Michael.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It should be a historic weekend. Hopefully Naval can do it just for racing. It'll be great to see her do it. And of course there's great action as well at Ascot, Newmarket, so there's something for everyone.
Do you know what, Michael? I've been practicing all morning with the name and straight in with Michael. Tom's going to be happy because he always gets it wrong, and I was priding myself on getting it right to say, but yeah, Miho, moving on.
Sam. We can edit that out, Gina. We can edit that out.
Brilliant. We'll let that slide. Sam, obviously it's the one we've all been waiting for. Third historic bid to make history enable on Sunday. I mean, I'm assuming we've got a 4-strong fan club of her today. We've got to try and go through and find potential negatives, potential opponents against her. But that said, it's going to be something special.
Yeah, I think there'll be a big pilgrimage over to Paris-Longchamp as well, with a lot of British supporters going on to cheer her on. And she's got a reasonable draw, which is a positive. She's not stuck on the wing or on the inside, so should be no excuses that way. There looks plenty of pace in the race as well, with some natural front runners. So Frankie Dettori should just be able to organise himself and get into the rhythm of the race. And she's reportedly done a superb piece of work as well in the last 7 days. So she looks damn well near impregnable, to be honest. Comes here off the back of 12 straight wins. A lot of people felt that York performance, the defeat at Magical, even though perhaps her main rival wasn't fully tuned up that day, was still one of her best performances. She beat her more comfortably than she had done in previous meetings. So everything looks set fair for Enable. But, you know, it's a really good quality arc with plenty of strength and depth, and we look forward to picking through one or two of the main protagonists.
Yeah, we'll do just that. Donn, are you lucky enough to be going over to Paris-Longchamp on Sunday?
I'm going to Tipperary on Sunday, Gina, so I'm lucky enough to be going to Tipperary on Sunday. I'll be watching on a small screen from Tipperary. Oh, it's a long way from anywhere to Tipperary. Yeah, look, I'll be watching it, of course, with massive interest. And just to echo what the lad said, it's fantastic that she's there and that she's going for it. And you know, it's remarkable that the Arc has never been won 3 times, given that it has been won twice, 6 or 7 times. So Trev tried and came up short. Trev had a similar profile to Enable, I suppose, going into the race, and she was an impressive winner of the Vermeil before she went to the Arc. She was an even money shot. But yeah, look, and it's very difficult to find reasons why she won't win. She has everything in her favour. She's proven on course distance the ground shouldn't be an issue. She's got Frankie Dettori and John Gosling in her corner. She's the best horse on ratings going into the race. Look, it'd be brilliant to see it.
Yeah, it certainly will. Before we pick apart the bones of Enable's form this year and indeed have a look at some of the contenders against her, Miho, just remind us what the market is at this stage and what would you expect it to do heading into Sunday? Will the weight of confidence, Frankie, John Gosden, history kind of carry that momentum through to Sunday?
I'd expect so, yeah. So Enable sits at the top of the market at 1.735. Japan then is 7.0. Sotsas is 8.2. Then you have Gayat is 12.5. Magical is 17.5. Waldegeist is 22.0, and its Big Price is the rest.
Okay, I'm surprised actually that Sotsas isn't the closest rival to her in the market. We'll see what our panel think. I'm just going to throw one sort of potential negative out there. We've kind of spoken about all her positives, but I don't know what you thought, Sam, but at York, she got quite warm beforehand, and it was obviously a very easy victory in the end. But I just wondered whether, you know, she did have a very hard race in the King George. She got a little bit warm and edgy at York, maybe as if the memory of that race was still with her. That would just be the only potential question mark you could find, sort of delving through her form as a negative. What did you think of that?
Yeah, it's a very fair point. And I think if she perhaps performed sluggishly on the Naysmire, I'd have taken that as a real danger light, really, you know, flashing red light. But the fact that she stepped up again on that previous performance at Ascot, I thought, you know, there was a chance that she might be a little bit vulnerable at York. It was very much a stepping stone, and I wondered how wound up she'd be with the Arc just 45 days on from that run. But, you know, it was Magical probably that was just left a little bit undercooked with the Champion Stakes in mind, and Enable was her imperious best, really. It was all set up for her in some respects to fail. You know, the Enable bar, the whole day was geared around, the whole meeting really was geared around her. There were 10 deep at the parade ring, there were 10 deep at the pre-parade, and there was a lot of buzz about her, and you know, she still performed on the track admirably. So she's got pretty much an iron constitution, you know, great personality as well, hasn't she, for a horse? And you know, the public have really taken it to their hearts. So I wouldn't necessarily think that'd be a massive problem. As you know, there's quite a long walk from the boxes over to the pre-parade at York, and just maybe that you know, the whole meeting just got to her a little bit. But you know, Art Day is going to be busy as well. Don't make any mistake about that. But I still think she's been there and coped with it a couple of times before now, so I don't see it being a major issue.
Yeah, I just get the impression with her as well, even when you think things are going to conspire against her, she always just manages to pull out that little bit extra, eyeball her opponent, doesn't she? And it's like, have it, yeah, done enough there, past we go, and it's job done. And Donn, you know, looking ahead to Sunday, obviously it's very difficult to find negatives for her. She's drawn in stall 8. We've got the smallest field since Dylan Thomas's arc a number of years ago now. So even draw, I don't think should have a big impact this year.
No, like before we knew what the draw was, Gina, it was a positive for Enable and probably for all her rivals as well, that there were only 12 horses going to go to post. So however bad the draw was, it wasn't going to be like, I think there were 19 runners last year. So the wide draw and a 19 runner field is obviously worse than a wide draw in a 12 horse race. So yeah, look, stall 9 is fine. And I suppose the fact that Japan and Gaiath are both outside her, two of her main rivals, that's a so she's relative to two of her main rivals, she's fared better in the draw, looking at it from a, you know, fairly from an objective point of view, where you consider a wide draw as a negative and an inside draw as a positive. Satsas stall 1, that might not be a positive either, because he's inside, and you know, you'd probably prefer a little bit out from the absolute inside. So that's a draw that Christian Demura is going to have to overcome. But yeah, I think stall 9 is fine. Like anywhere around there, 12 maybe wouldn't have been ideal for her, but anywhere at 7, 8, 9 would have been perfect. So I don't think the draw is going to be the thing that's going to get her beaten anyway.
Yeah. Miho, who do you see as her main rival then in the markets? Obviously got Japan as the shortest of them. Who do you see as the main danger?
Japan was the one I had picked out as our main danger. Actually, Gina, I think that he's had a great season. I think that he was quite unlucky in the Derby, and he's just been fantastic ever since. I think this has been his target. They didn't send him to Champions Weekend at all. He went off to France for a prep run. It was very impressive, I think, and he's got the 3-year-old allowance as well, which will obviously stand to him. He's drawn nearer as well. I think he might be the one that stalks Frankie. I think that he might sit behind, or Magical might go on. Magical might make a go over from the front, or go on ahead of her. But I think that Enable is probably, she wouldn't be a bet for me now at that price, but I think she's rock solid. She can be weighted with, she can go off out in front, she can do whatever she wants. And I'd like to see her win. I don't think I'll be having a bet in the race. I think that this isn't the race that you need a bet in to enjoy, but I think of all the rest of them, I'd be fancying Japan maybe to give her a good run.
Sam, would you agree with that view, or would you be looking elsewhere?
I think I'd probably look elsewhere, really. I'm with Donn. I think that the drawing 1 for Sotas isn't great, although he did manage to extricate himself from a similar pocket in the Pre-Niel and quicken up very well. So he has got a sharp turn of foot. Japan I've got a lot of respect for, but he did scramble home a little bit here over course and distance. Thought he did well to overcome 1 or 2 things on the Naysmar to win. But I think I'd probably look at a double figure price if I was going to play each way, win and place. And Magical would certainly be on the short list, and as would Waldgeist. I think both of them are really interesting. If you like that Enable form line, like everyone seems to, then both of those horses are the ones that have been hunting her up in previous runs. Waldgeist is 4 from 6 round here. He wouldn't mind the ground drying out a little bit, but you know, he was only a length or 2 behind Enable in this race last year, well, just over a length, and there was more traffic, and he didn't get the perfect run through. So I think he's entitled to sort of hit the frame, Waldgeist, and you know, he obviously ran, you know, particularly well at Ascot as well, beating a couple of lengths by her in the King George, staying on quite nicely in dour conditions. So at sort of 16, 18, 20 to 1 on the exchange, I think he just makes plenty of appeal for me.
Yeah, and tactics-wise, he could be an interesting one, because you're going to have horses like Japan going on to try and get an Enable beat, but Waldgeist might just be one of those that can stalk him behind. And not saying they're going to ride him for a place as such, but they can let things unfold hopefully to suit them. But tactics, I think, Donn, are going to be key, because obviously we know Frankie Dettori is a master wherever he ends up in a race. But when you've got a horse like Gaieth in there, who could just go on, we saw what he did when he destroyed the field at Baden-Baden last time by 14 lengths. He looked an absolute monster and was described as so by William Buick. He could go on, and he's not a horse you'd want to let get too far ahead of you. So Frankie's going to have to keep tabs on him. He's then going to have to think about the potent turn of speed of a Sotsas in behind. So it leaves quite an interesting tactical balance.
It does. I mean, on the positive side for Enable, she's got Frankie Dettori, as you say, and Frankie Dettori in a Group 1 race, generally, in an arc specifically, he's just dynamite. He's rarely in the wrong place. And we saw it in Enable's two wins. He was, especially at Sean T, I thought, from stall 2, where you have that left-hand kink before you turn right. He was kind of wide around the left-hand kink, but he got her going forward enough without setting her alight, and was still able to settle her back in a prominent position when they started to go right again. I mean, he's just, you know, he's one of the best, if not the best in the world in these big races. No, I think your point on Gaieth is very interesting, Gina, because he's in stall 12, and as you were saying earlier on, stall 12, looking at it objectively again, without going into the forensics of it, it looks like a negative draw. But actually, I think for Gaieth, it might actually be a positive. He's widest of all. We saw Frankie Dettori on Golden Horn when he won the Arc a couple of years ago, beating Trev in her bid for 3. He wasn't widest of all that day, but he was wide, and he kept him wide the whole way out for about two or 2.5 furlongs before he moved over and tucked in. And Gaieth, as you say, is such a monster of a horse that I think William Buick said that he likes to let him use his stride. So going up the first straight before they start to turn, it's probably no harm that he's going to be wide. And William Buick can go forward if he like Gaieth. We saw it Baden-Baden. He is a forward-going horse. He took it up as soon as they entered the back straight first time after they gone a couple of furlongs. And you can see Gaieth at least being ridden prominently. So if he lets him stride on up the first straight, and then allows him come across gradually, he'll tuck in maybe in front on the rail, or maybe at least prominent 1 or 2 off the rail. So I can see Gaieth, being a massive feature of the early part of the race at least. And look, my knowledge of German form is not badly expert, but on the time figures that Simon Rowlands and people who do these things, they were impressed with the time on the day. But the manner that he did it in, like to come as far as that clear, he won by 14 lengths. I mean, and maybe it wasn't as strong a Group 1 race as we're used to here, but it was still a Group 1 race, and to win it by as far as he did, clocking the times that he reportedly clocked, that was a massive performance. And he's only run 6 or 7 times. He could go forward again. The rain is probably no harm for him. And yeah, you can see the case for Japan. He's a 3-year-old getting the weight, as is Sotsas. His win at the Juddmonte was very good, probably over a trip that's short of his best. And Aidan O'Brien has kept him off since then, obviously to train him for the Arc. So he's a big player in the race getting the weight. And we know it's a really good race for 3-year-olds. But I think Gaieth, in market terms and in price terms, he could be the underrated horse in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Based on what we saw last time. Sam, how impressed were you with that performance? So William Buick was obviously very, very impressed.
Well, he certainly looked a different horse from the one we saw in the Gannet anyway, when he was beaten at odds on and Vargas went past him as if he was standing still. I mean, he stuck to his task pretty well over the 10 there, but he was a different horse when ridden, very aggressively on that galloping track at Baden-Baden. My only slight concern would be that, whether he recoils off that monster performance on the figures just a month later, considering he had such an absence in between. I don't know what the situation was there, whether they just wanted to keep him for a back-end campaign, or whether there was something amiss with him. I'm not privy to that. But I agree with Donn. I think 12's perfect for him because he's out of the traffic. He can use his long stride, William Buick, and he does seem to devour the ground. So providing that little Japanese irritant Kiseki doesn't take him on and bustle him up at the head of affairs, then you could see a massive run from Gaieth with conditions really going to suit him.
And we should mention Sotsas as well. Obviously, really good time clocked in the Prix du Jockey Club. Amazing to think Jean-Claude Rouget hasn't won an Arc, but with this horse, I have to say, to me, he's the main danger to Enable. That devastating turn of foot. If Enable gets rolling early, like she did against Sea of Class last year, he could be almost the Sea of Class to close in behind, albeit she didn't beat her, but Michal, to me, is potentially a big danger in this field.
Yeah, and I like to see horses that can kind of accelerate out of a pocket like that. I thought that was the most impressive part of his run the last day, was that he just found his gap and burst through it and got away from it. I was looking at See the Stars as winning the Arc a few years ago, and he did the exact same thing. Just found a gap in the last 2 furlongs and just burst away from them. That's a great thing to have for Satsas, and he's definitely a danger. And again, like the way it loans. And I think the French would love to get this back. This is it's been a few years now since they've won it. Like, and he's the first really good horse they've had now in 2 or 3 years to have a run at this. So you're spot on there. I think he's got a great chance.
We've got Japanese contenders. We've got one from the Czech Republic. Are there any other horses that are worth a mention? Maybe to pick up some money, some place money even. Are there any others that we should just cover off before we wax lyrical more about Enable? Sam?
I've got to be honest, I'm not privy to a lot of the Japanese form, unfortunately. I think I've got the same form book as Donn, really. It's very much British and Irish with a bit of French thrown in for good measure. So I'll stick with Volgeist. He's a Longchamp specialist. Hopefully the ground dries out a little bit for him, win and place a little bit against Enable. That would be the way I'd go.
So an each way on Volgeist. How will you be playing the race, Donn?
Yeah, I've had a few quid on Guyat actually, Gina. So yeah, I think he's the overpriced horse. We didn't mention Magical that much. Actually, she's only got 3 parts of a length to find with Enable on the running in the Eclipse and in the Breeders' Cup Turf. So, and she was very good in the Irish Champion Stakes last time. For all that it wasn't a vintage renewal of the Irish Champion Stakes, she still did it well. She did all she needed to do, and she's not that far behind Enable. But I suppose the fact that Ryan Moore is riding Japan instead of Magical, that may not have been an easy choice for him to make. But I think Magical is, maybe she might end up being a little bit underrated, and because of that I can see her running a big race. But no, I think Guyat is the value.
Yeah, she's so consistent, isn't she? You certainly can't discount her for a place. And Micheál, will you be with Enable? I know it's not really a betting proposition, but will you be looking elsewhere?
I'd love to see Enable win it, yeah. Like I said, there wouldn't be a betting race. If I was going to pick one out of him at a massive price, I was looking at Nagano Gold. I think he's 65.0. I thought he ran a brilliant race at Ascot, during Royal Ascot, and I'm just trying to bring up the Hardwick Stakes. Kind of surprised everyone that massive price. If you want something at a really big price for an each way winning place bet, I think that'd be the one I would go for.
Yeah, it's interesting because she's so good, isn't she, Enable, that she breaks hearts in behind her, and you could just get something, almost ridden for a place and picking up the pieces. But I'm with Enable every step of the way. You've got to be, haven't you, to make history on Sunday with a historic 3rd arc. So that is, of course, the centrepiece of the action from Paris-Longchamp. But domestically, hopefully we can whet the appetite with a few winners on Saturday, because we've got a whole host of good racing. We'll start, if we can, guys, at Ascot, because we have a pretty decent card there. We've got the Bengoff Stakes. We've got also the Challenge Cup, as it's now known, the Big Heritage Handicap on the day. Let's start with the Challenge Cup, Micheál. Just run us through how they bet for this.
So we have Raising Sand in here on a 5.0, Rip Off is 6.0, Bedouin Story is 8.5, Kinran is 9.0, Casanova is 10.0, Escobar is 10.5, Summer Hand is 14.0, and as big price as the rest.
So Ascot, looks like we're going to get soft ground. Last year's winner, Raising Sand. That looks like a perfect storm for tomorrow's race, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously sidestepped the Cambridgeshire, which looked a very smart move now, considering the ground that was run on, and saved them for this. And it looks the perfect move, really. I mean, a number of these horses, we got the 1st and 2nd from last year, and a few that were in the backwash, a few of the refugees like Escobar and Kinran, etc. So it looks a belting handicap of its type. Obviously, Raising Sand drawn a little bit more towards the stand side rail, and that was where I could only really see the pace, courtesy of the likes of Casanova, and perhaps Lake Volta in 12 as well. So they might run in one group, because obviously the track's narrowed for this race to save the ground for Champions Day. But with just the 18, there does look a little bit more pace stand side. So I ended up with Kinran, an old favourite of mine, really. He's another one that missed the Cambridgeshire out because he ran in it last year, and I don't know if he jarred himself up a little bit, but he ran really well on fast ground. And I thought he ran really well at Ayr last time. A lot of people had cribbed him because he was beaten favourite that day, but he still clocked a very, very respectable figure, and the Racing Post ratings have it his best race of his career. So that was on ground that was probably a bit on the lively side as well. as we know, Ayr didn't get the rain that weekend, so I thought it was a really creditable performance. This looks a perfect setup for him. It might be pretty deep at Ascot with 1 or 2 more showers to come this weekend, and he's drawn up the stand side rail. Ben Curtis gets back on him as well, and Ben's got a really good record on him. I think he's 3 from 6. Hasn't ridden him for a while because Robert Winston and PJ have been on board, so I think that's another positive for him. And I think if Kinran's ever going to drop into a race of this nature, I think everything is set up for him to run a massive race. I'm obviously very respectful of Raising Sun and Ripoff. They're 2 of my favourites. They've been around for a while and they always turn up for these gigs. They're fantastic horses, but I just wonder whether it might just be Kinran's day in the sun.
He certainly deserves it. He's been running so admirably, hasn't he, in all those big handicaps. He deserves to bag one this season. Donn, how do you see the race shaping up? Obviously, there's so many of these horses that have been running well in all these big course and distance handicaps. I mean, Ripoff among them, Raising Sand, who we've mentioned. Who would your money be with?
Yeah, I think as well as having the same form book for Longchamp, Sam and I have the same form book for Ascot. Because it's a good race, this, because as Sam said, the course is narrow, and actually it's surprising how narrow it does get. But they save it for the champions meeting now in a couple of weeks. With the result that it's not that daunting 30-26 runner Ascot handicap that we're used to. So yeah, look, the first and second from last year, Raising Sand, he's significantly higher in the market or in the handicap and also in the market than he was last year. But look, I think 7 furlong soft ground, that's ideal for him. Ripoff similarly back at Ascot, where he loves Ascot. I think he's a better horse at Ascot than he is anywhere else. So you can see those 2, first and second from last year, playing a big role. But I think Kinran has his followers, his set followers, and I think after he got beaten the last day, he's going to lose some of them, and that might be the time to get him. I'd always prefer back Kinran in a good race at a slightly bigger price than in a race that he was, like the last day that he was sent off as favourite for at Ayr, at a short price, because he doesn't win as often as he should, really. Like, he's such a talented horse. He's only won 2 or 3 times in his life, which is kind of incredible, really, for a horse of his ability. But I think 7 furlongs is probably a strip more than a mile. Soft ground is better. He goes better on soft ground than on better ground, and Ascot as well. So he does have, he has all those elements in his favour. Plus the fact that I just think that people have kept the faith, and he because he doesn't win often enough, he has tested people's patience. But I think the run the last day was a good run, again without winning. Back with these conditions and at a bigger price, slightly bigger price maybe than he should be. I think he's the interesting horse in the race. I think he's a horse to keep faith in when people are losing faith in him, if that makes sense. We know he's talented. He's off the same mark again. Like this mark, 100, 101, it should be a mark off which he can win. And he's got a lot in his favour. And he's about, what price is he on? He's about 9.0, is he? On the
9.0, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's fair about him in a race that doesn't have, your typical 26 or 28 runners in an Ascot handicap.
Just one final point to make on him, really, is that I think Ben Curtis in half a dozen rides has only been out of the first 3 on him once, and that was on very fast ground at Ascot. I think it was the Royal Hunt Cup a while back, year before last. So, he obviously gets on very well with him, and I think if there is a little bit of a pace collapse late, we often see in these races, they're difficult to win. They're 18, 25, 30 runner races. They are difficult to win, and he always runs to such a brilliant standard that hopefully the door will open for him tomorrow.
Slightly different profile of a horse, but I think worth a mention, this Casanova, the 3-year-old who's lurking down at the bottom for John Gosden, who is dropping back in trip. It's quite an interesting profile for this sort of race. I mean, he's obviously not battle hardened like some of the others, but he certainly knows what it takes to win, and it's just how much of a step forward he takes. His only run on turf came on good to soft, so maybe the surface is going to suit. He's in a pretty good spot in stall 13, and you wouldn't want to be underestimating a horse like that, I imagine. Michael, what price is he?
Casanova's 10.0, just slightly bigger than Kinran, and you'd have to be respecting a John Gosden horse in a handicap like this, that is, an unexposed John Gosden horse in a handicap like this. He seems to have loads of them that he can put out every week, and yeah, could be a big race out of her.
Would you have a bet in this race?
I'm going for Bedouin Story. I actually fancied him last week for the Cambridgeshire and tipped him on the podcast before he was withdrawn. I think this is actually much better conditions for him. I think he ran a good race at York in July on soft and won. I like his running style. I think he'll suit Ascot. He'll come from the rear and arrive there late. He's 8.5. There's been a bit of money for him. So I'm going to stick with him this week.
Okay, so we've got a few.
Hopefully he comes up.
We've got Team Kinran being taken on by Bedouin Story, who should love the soft ground as well. And I think maybe I'll be keeping an eye. I might have a few quid on Casanova for the big heritage handicap of the day. We've also got the Group 3 Ben Goff Stakes, which has been a really significant race in the past, been won by the likes of Blue Point, Shalar as well. And we've been rewarded with a pretty good lineup as well this year. Run us through the market for this one first, Michal.
Okay, so we've Tab D at the top with 3.0, Cape Byron is 3.5, then you have Don Juan Triumph with a 7.0, Raucus is 8.0, Keystroke is 16.5, and it's big prices than the rest of it.
Okay, so we've got a fascinating market leader here, Sam, talking of unexposed horses. He has had a long time off in between races. I think he's only ever backed up twice, and that didn't go too well. But the monster performance he put up at Doncaster last time suggests that he's a fair bit better than the mark he started out on this season.
Yeah, obviously very brittle, but unexposed, under-raced, and very talented. Tabdi been given a couple of months as well to get over his exertions on Town Moor, which I think is obviously a positive. He goes very well fresh, got good form at Ascot, got form with cutting the ground. Some would say he's probably, the rightful market leader, but I'm a big fan of Cape Byron, if I'm honest. He won that aforementioned Victoria Cup back in May, which has worked out so well. And if I fancy Kinran to win the big handicap, I've got to fancy Cape Byron to perhaps put one over on Tab D back at his favourite venue. 6 runs at Ascot, 3 wins, including a Wokingham, including the Victoria Cup. Thought he acquitted himself pretty well at York last time, away from his favourite stomping ground. But I think with the Roger Varian horses in great nick, another couple of winners yesterday and a narrow miss at Chelmsford, they're going so well and with plenty of cut in the ground, stiff 6 furlongs, back to Ascot, patient ride. I just can't get that vision of him sauntering through the Wokingham Stakes out of my head, really. I thought that was a tremendous performance, one of the handicap performances of the year, really. So I'll have to stay loyal to Cape Byron.
Yeah, I like Cape Byron's chances as well. Don, who would you be with in this contest? Would you be going for the unexposed Tab Deed or one of the more proven performers?
Yeah, I can't get that image out of my head either because I backed It's Marvellous in the Wokingham, so Cape Byron so trig away is an image that, yeah, it lasts a long time. No, I was trying to take on Tab Deed, Gina, but I think it's hard. Like he does have £10 to find with Cape Byron in official ratings, so he should be a bigger price than him. But as is often the case with these horses, the kind of unexposed progressive horses, they tend to be shortened up correctly so in the market these days. Look, the form of his Doncaster run the last day is working out really well. Bernardo O'Reilly won next time at Oxted, to finish 4th, albeit probably didn't run his race. He went on and won the Portland. He's proven over the course and distance. His run at Doncaster shows that he can handle at least a little bit of cut in the ground. The ground might be a wee bit softer now on Saturday, tomorrow than it was that day, but he does handle cut. He's lightly raced. He's progressing, and progressive has got the potential to be so much better. Look, Cape Byron sets a very high standard. And 6 furlongs, that's 6 or 7 furlongs. He seems to be equally adept over both trips, and that's the standard that Tab Deed has to reach. But he's got such potential, and he was so good the last day at Doncaster, and the fact that he's got course form as well. I think that's always key at Ascot to, especially if you're looking at shorter prices, you need a horse proven at the track. Yeah, I think he's got it all in his favour.
Yeah, I like the chances of Cape Byron. Would you be with us in the 4-strong Cape Byron fan club, or are you going elsewhere?
Absolutely, I'll be Cape Byron for everything that Sam said there. I think he's it's not a great price, but I think he's a very good horse to the race. Although Don has made a fantastic case for Tab Deed there, so I might take a close look with him. But Cape Byron was the one I came down on, so I stick with him.
Okay, so Cape Byron for the Ben Goff Stakes, of course. Brilliant racing, not only at Ascot, but we've got good racing at Newmarket as well. We've already discussed Paris Longchamp. Time now to get the panel's best bets of the weekend. And it doesn't have to be in the races you've already discussed. We can throw in something else. Sam, what's your best bet of the weekend?
I'm going to stay loyal to Kinran, win and place. I might even stick him in an each-way double with Volgeist and try and go for the big jackpot. But I'm also quite keen on Maygold in the opening race at Ascot. I think Dakota Gold's been on the go a little bit, and although I'm very respectful of him, I just was so impressed with Maygold at Haydock. If she's ridden chilly and just out the back and produced with that same sort of turn of foot as she found at Haydock, I thought she could be quite irresistible in the first race at Ascot if she copes with the track okay. But Kinran for me, each way.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully that can get us off to a flyer on Saturday. Don, where's the money going this weekend?
Kinrin. Yeah, I like Kinrin. I've backed Guyette small each, or not each way, actually win only in the Art of Triumph. I think the 12-1 about him is big enough. I mean, look, I'm an Enabled fan. Isn't everybody? You'd love to see it for, it'd be brilliant for racing. But I'll be also cheering on Guyette in behind the Enabled fan club. And yeah, Kinrin, for all the reasons we spoke about, I think he's got it all in his favour. Soft ground. I think he might be just underrated on the back of that defeat the last day. And I think the soft ground is key to him. Like he came under pressure a fair way out of there the last day and stayed on well. Whereas on softer ground, that means that he should be able to travel into his race a wee bit better. And while it's a very, very competitive race, I think around 9.0, I think that's fair enough about him.
It's going to be a sinking ship, this Matchbook podcast, if Kinrin doesn't show up tomorrow. Michal, give us something else. What else have you got for us?
We have to be the only podcast in the world napping Kinrin twice, lads.
Yeah. Of course, he's won twice in his life. Yeah.
I'm going to go for something. I'm going to go for Hermosa in the Sun Chariot in Newmarket. I think that she has only run badly once this year. This is back to one of her best, the course and distance of one of her best performances. I think she'd handled the soft ground. The first time I saw her was at Galway last year when she was running through the muck. Shouldn't be a bother for her. I think she's about 5.0 at the moment, so I'm going to stick with her for the best bet for the weekend.
And it pains me to do so, but I'm going to take you on in the Sun Chariot with Iridessa. It pains me, not because I'm taking you on, but because I'm taking on Lawrence, who has been one of my all-time favourite horses. I think she's going to bring the curtain down on her career tomorrow at Newmarket in the Sun Chariot. What a star she's been, but just form seems to be tailing off a little bit for her. So I think Iridessa for Joseph O'Brien was a fair and square winner back to the mile last time with the Matron. Slight concern that she seems to do her best performances under Wayne Lorden, but I'm sure Donica will get a good tune out of her tomorrow, and I think she is the most likely winner of the Sun Chariot. So fingers crossed, not only for Kinrin, but indeed for all of the selections going into the weekend. Michal, thank you. Sam, Donn, enjoy the weekend.
You too, Gina. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you all for watching the Matchbook podcast, and all that remains to be said is, come on, Enable, we're all behind you. A 4-strong fan club as she bids to make history on Sunday. Enjoy the weekend, everyone.